is sort of in a frozen state that is very similar to what it was like when it was very young. And by studying planets like Mars, we can look at the early development of the solar system. How did Mars develop? What might the climate have been in its early days? Was it similar to Earth? Was it hospitable to life? Is it hospitable to life now? Did life on Earth arrive from Mars? Or did Earth seed Mars with life? Those things are possible. This is the Royal Observatory of Belgium. So this is where people study planets, the solar system and outer space. I think there's about 1,000 people working for the observatory. Some of them are actually at the planetarium elsewhere in Brussels. The branch I work in at the observatory, its main objective is to understand the formation and the interior structure of planets and how they move, because planets they wobble in space in complex ways and they change shape and they're influenced by their moons. They can flatten or be stabilized or thrown off their regular motion by the moons orbiting them and so on. I studied mechanical engineering in the University of Louvain in Belgium, and I progressed to a postmaster at the Von Karman Institute, where I gained some hands-on experience to do research. I worked on wind tunnels, I built probes, I measured things in hypersonic wind tunnels, and then I was hired at the observatory to work on post-flight reconstruction of ExoMars. So ExoMars is a mission that will take place in 2 years. It's a European mission. It will be the first successful landing on the surface of Mars that has not been performed by Americans. So there's been about 6 missions to Mars that are all NASA missions. And this aims to be a demonstration of technology that Europe is capable of landing things on Mars, which is very challenging. There is relatively little competition in aerospace research, for the simple reason that a lot of people don't know about it or think it is something not only happening elsewhere but also happening in the past. So there has been a space race, and that race is over now, and development has slowed down, but it's continued. I am supervising 2 students from the University of Brussels that are working on Mars entry with me, and they seem to enjoy what they get to do. Those projects are generally short. They can be 3-month projects, 6-month projects. Some of them are year-long theses, but they have a lot of them get motivated to do some extra education or to do another internship that is related to the subject they were introduced to. They're talking about you.
Okay.
About students getting excited about space. So that's another thing that is actually taught pretty late that was taught late in my education, is how to write a scientific text or how to write a technical text. We got technical drawing classes, we got a lot of practice presenting. But there is a certain convention when writing a technical or a scientific text, in that you separate the presentation of your results from your interpretations, in that the introductions and the conclusion chapters have to be sort of have to stand on their own. You have to be able to read the start of the text and the end and really get everything without having to bother go through all the details in between and so on. And that's something I learned at the very, very end of my education when writing my thesis, and that I wasn't very good at it back then, and that I've improved a lot by working in research. I can't give much career advice because I'm very young and my career isn't very long yet. But my strategy has been to just take the small steps in the right direction, which I guess is obvious. You don't get to make huge choices very often. You generally get to choose maybe the colleagues you work with, or where you do an internship, and I've just tried to make those small steps be small improvements over where I was. So because I'm young, everything is new and interesting, and I've tried to make the next thing slightly more interesting and slightly better paid, and maybe pointing to where I want to go, which is, in my case, that would be design of space missions. If your interest is working in aerospace, you need to build those skills somewhere, and you're gonna have to build them in internships and in education and theses and so on. There are some companies as well that have traineeship programs, but they lock you in slightly because they offer you this training, and then they want you to work for them, and that can be perfectly fine. But you have to be okay with that, and it's a longer term decision than doing a one-year internship, doing another one-year internship, starting a PhD, which you can quit at any time, basically, and so on. I'm just going out to smoke. Alright. Want to be on TV?
They are passing a law, I don't know if it's already done or not. It will be for at least 1 month internship, you'll have at least 500 euros by month. So it's quite a good thing for students, because most of the time internship are obligatory, not like for me that's my 4th internship. 3 are obligatory, and as my school has 5 years of study, I did a first internship in 2nd year, and then the 3 other were obligatory.
Yeah.
But unpaid. Because not in France.
Yeah, well, mobility is extremely important, because in Europe is a pretty high concentration and interconnected environment, and we still have these nation states from back in the day that sometimes have reached out to each other, like the Erasmus program and the Bologna Convention are great because they allow students to study at different European universities. But sometimes when after they graduate, they find there are some barriers for traveling to specific places. They might not get financial support because they're from a certain country, whereas their colleague students from another country do, because they're part of NATO or they're part of some agreement. And I think countries should make an effort to be involved in as many networks and collaborative agreements as they can. I think a lot of my engineering classmates ended up working in industry. So I know that only a couple pursued PhDs, and those account probably for 10% of the class size. But most of them are working in companies. Most of them are working in industry, and not all of them are actually solving technical problems. I see a lot of logistics and management positions as well. Von Karman Institute has professional workers and it has students, but they sort of blend into each other. The students are working on actual projects, and a lot of the engineers are using students or collaborating with students. It's learning by doing, basically. I think at VKI you'll find a lot of people that find the things they learned in their education, especially then the part they had at VKI, very useful, because they've been taught what they need to know to perform this type of work. For me, the most rewarding period of my education has been the final 3 years, where I've been responsible for my own projects and realized that a lot of this stuff that I was taught and understood well, or thought I understood well, I hadn't actually applied ever. So this is the Von Karman Institute. It's about 60 years old. Let me introduce you to one of my colleagues. Yeah, confusing, right?
Yeah.
I'm staying until 5.
You stay up to 5?
Yeah, these girls are making a documentary on
Sebastian, they want to ask you some questions.
Yeah, they want to interview young people and ask how useful their education. Come on,
You can go.
Some people are sorry.
You have an excuse, but he doesn't.
Okay.
And hopefully at 5 we can have a beer.
Sure. That was my plan.
Great. So this is my colleague and an ex-supervisor from VKI, Sebastien, the one that makes his own beer. Did you expect yourself to be doing something like this, to work at a place like this, to work on a topic like this?
If people would have said the first year, I will go for a PhD afterwards, I would have said no.
That sounds horrible, right? When you're 20 to do a PhD, it's like, let's study 4 more years while I could be making money. And
But then my vision changed a bit during the years, and especially through my last years when I did the thesis, where I really got interested in research. Then I came here to do the master. The year before you. I think.
Yeah, you were 1 year ahead.
1 year ahead of him, and I stick to the topic, and I liked it, and I liked doing research, so I stayed doing the PhD.
And you plan to stay in this field or this profession for in the near future, let's say.
Near
the next
future,
10
yes.
years. Yeah.
I would rather focus more on research than on going somewhere in industry, but then if I go really further, then I don't know what's gonna happen.
I don't know either. So this is the long shot. It's the high-speed wind tunnel of the VKI. It's basically a cannon. So you have this long barrel here, and the cannon is loaded with a piston. So this is about 2 or 3 kilograms. This is basically a bullet that is fired by a high-pressure reservoir through this tube. Pressures in that reservoir, they reach 4,000 times the value of the Earth atmosphere, 4,000 bars, that's a lot of pressure. And the temperatures reach about 2,000, 2,500 degrees. So this is where the gas pressure and temperature are converted to velocity. So instead of a hot, high pressure gas in a reservoir, we will get a cold but very, very fast moving flow. Where do you see yourselves in 10 years? Would you like to be a researcher or... I won't answer the question for you. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I know you had asked me 2 years ago, and I would say totally no. But after 1 year and a half here in Von Karman, I mean, maybe it's a good option. Research. I mean, it's true you don't get that well paid, but the work is much more interesting.
The pay depends as well. Where you work and
well, of course not in Spain, but in Belgium probably.
So what are your very immediate plans, because you'll graduate in 1 month?
I think I'm gonna take some weeks of holidays just to reconnect with the real world.
Good point.
And then find a job. Why not in the industry?
All right.
I think it started from my childhood when I was 5 years old, and I just building vehicles and airplanes and aircraft from Lego, and it was like, okay, it could be nice. And after I realized in high school, like, oh, it's maybe I can do this. Like, it's not just a dream. I can realize it. And after, okay, I applied for a school of engineering. In the beginning, I think it's hard. Every engineering science, like the basics, like the math, the physics and mechanics. But after, when you can see, okay, it has a reason why you are learning all of this, and after it's pretty cool.
This is the L1. This is the largest wind tunnel at the Von Karman Institute. It's subsonic, but that means it still goes up to, I think it's 300 kilometers an hour. I mean, obviously it's large enough to put cyclists or very large models in here. Also parts of buildings, lighting poles, things like that. How they interact with winds, for example. People selling solar panels for homes. How sturdy are they in high winds and so on? Those are things that are tested in this wind tunnel. This project was about a new European Parliament building in Brussels a couple of years ago, and so we built a scale model of that area in the city. We added the new parliamental building that hadn't been built back then, and we investigated the wind flows around the new building, how that affects the winds and the currents in the surrounding city. And it was decided to add this ring to prevent the wind from picking up to larger than comfortable speeds. You're a research engineer now, which means you solve technical problems every day. A lot of your work is technical. Did you plan for that while you were a student? Did you imagine yourself in a function like this, and did you take internships to practice applying your knowledge, or?
Kind of. At the beginning, when I started to study, I didn't even know that I was going to finish the studies because there is a big leap, a big change from the high school to the university. So the first thing was, your first task is try to survive.
How useful has your education been in your current job? Do you apply what you learned every day? Do you feel there is a mismatch between what you were prepared for and the challenges you face now, or does everything work out quite well?
Actually, I feel pretty lucky with what I learned at university. There are some people complaining about, okay, what we learned at university was not useful, but I'm from the group of those people who say that it was quite useful.
Yeah,
okay.
I would say I'm in that group as well, because we're doing technical things.
Indeed. And if you go to an engineering university, you expect to work in engineering.
You need to apply almost all your knowledge, from the very basics what you in high school, even in high school in the engineering school. What you learn, what is really basic, and you think, oh, maybe I want to use this. Never.
Yeah, a lot of the mathematics that we were taught when we were 16 are actually very important now, right?
Some of the basic ideas you have to have very clear to be able to solve the problems you face here.
The important thing is that you learn how to think during the university. So even if you learn something that is not close to your topic, you learn techniques to deal with it that may apply in different fields.
Hey, what's up? I didn't see you today.
Yeah,
I did not.
You were not here.
I was here all day, not in the morning.
Is it free now? Sébastien?
You will be having a beer, so if you want to talk to him.
Yeah. Ouais, mais en fait, je voulais chercher. Cet après-midi.
Bon, bien cherché.
Et non, à chaque fois, je revenais au bureau, il est pas là.
He's usually there when he's not in the office.
Okay.
You should come and discuss, with the beer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? I wanted to stay in the shop while we discuss the work. Oh, triple ups?
Yes.
I'm gonna have a triple up.
Qu'est-ce que vous prenez
In the north of Belgium, they make a beer that is on sale nowhere. So you have to go to the abbey, you have to call in advance, transmit your license plate number, and then they'll reserve one box of beer for you and so on. And this beer was flattering. It's been voted top 3 in the world by some websites, and everybody wants it and nobody can get it. So it's a mystical beer.
Just a training in the mock-up of Columbus. This is a picture of the team in the winter, and this is a managers meeting where all the USOC like us, because actually we are a Belgium USOC, a Belgium small control center, but there are actually now 7 others control center like us all around Europe, and each of them has their own kind of expertise. Like we will be doing solar observation for instance, and other things inside Columbus. But another USAC will have more expertise in biological experiments, other in physiology experiments, other will do more education experiments, something like that. And so there are one in Norway, in Italy, in Germany, and in total 8 now. It's becoming a network where it's not only about operator in Belgium, but all around Europe. And so from time to time we gather and trying to share our expertise and say, okay, what happened with our experiments. We share the lesson learned, let's say. And yeah.
There was this channel 3A power failure, so the next worst failure which could affect us is the NBSU4. If that happens, we would lose immediately PD1, and they won't fix it before GMT 133. So in 5 days or something.
So there's no redundancy?
Exactly.
Okay. And did you check the planning for the coming days? There were some misalignments with...
I didn't check the coming days. I only checked Sunday when Diego mentioned that it's also in his log, and for our impacts for this one.
My name is Nadia Tis. I'm now 28 years old. I studied astrophysics at the University in Leuven. And after that I did this extra year called Space Studies, which was more space, more about things in space generally, also more technical and things like that. And after that I straightly got to work here. So I work as an operator at PUSOC, and we do operations on the International Space Station. Our most important instrument right now is called SOLAR. It studies the sun, the output in energy of the sun. And I have been doing that now for 3 years, a bit more than 3 years. As a child I wanted to be an astronomer, and I wanted to be the best astronomer ever. But then in the end I wasn't, and I didn't like it too much anymore, and I got more into the space things. As a child I read books on astronomy, but also on space travel and the adventures, the Apollo time, and the people in mission control there. So those were these two fascinations I had. And I studied astronomy, and yet I didn't like it too much anymore. And then I got to work here, which is kind of mission control. So I'm very happy with that. And in fact, yes, as a child, I wanted to do that. I started studying, not really knowing what I would do in practice, but I ended up here, and I'm still very happy with that. Where we do shifts when you're on console, and we have office days. So when you do a shift, you arrive here either very early in the morning, or in the afternoon, or in the night, and you start with a handover with the previous operator. The previous operator will tell you what has happened during his or her shift, what activities are coming up, and if there is anything that will impact you, or things you have to know, or open tasks. You write that down if you want, and then the previous operator leaves, and it's up to you. Basically the main job is to monitor the telemetry of your instrument. So you constantly get temperature values, current values that your instrument generates, and you have to check that they are fine, that it's not going out of limits, because then you have to take action. So that's the main job. But next to that, you also do planning. So our activities can be impacted by other things that happen on the space station. For example, last week we had an installation of another instrument in the neighborhood of our instruments, which was a whole operation with a robotic arm, and we had to switch off our instrument, so it had an impact. And you do this planning. You make sure that you're ready for the activities, that you can plan science around it, and that is the second duty of your job. So you make sure that whatever you're doing right now, what the instrument is doing right now is fine. So the instrument itself is fine, the measurements are fine, and you prepare for the upcoming activities. That's basically the job on console. And of course, you have to be always ready in case something goes wrong. It can be something with your instrument, but it can also be something on board, like a fire. Didn't happen yet, but it could be. For example, right now I am working on a new experiment that we will get. So we have to get the whole team involved. We have to be ready to work with that instrument and things like that. And also, for example, we're gathering the lessons learned from this installation of this other instrument. So those are typically things that you will do in off-console days. I don't think my education is really in line with my job now. It's a good introduction. Studying physics and science in general, it gives you a way of thinking, which is useful, I think, both in science and in more technical stuff. And I have liked astronomy a lot, but I don't use it here. The space studies that I did afterwards, I use it more, but even without, I could have done this job, because this job it's such a specific world that requires a lot of in-house training, on-the-job training. You cannot follow an education to do ISS operations. But I think in general my education gave me a good background. Again, I'm not sure what I will be doing in 10 years. For now, I like this work a lot. I specifically like the shifts, actually. The real-time action, sometimes something happens and you have to react immediately. That I like about the job. I'm not sure when you get older and you have a family or something that it's still that convenient or that you still like that. I can also imagine in the end it's always the same. But then maybe a bit more in the preparation and the organization of the payloads. I can see myself evolving in that way. We work in one team with all the operators, and it's a very close team. We also have a good atmosphere. We also work with two companies a bit, and Alice and me work for the same company, so we have a quite close contact. She also has a lot more experience than me, so I ask her a lot of things. She has more management experience. So it's especially me asking things to her. But yeah, we work together a lot. Actually, before I applied here, I didn't know we did this in Belgium. That people do experiments on the International Space Station from Brussels. I thought it was all Houston or Russia, whatever. And in the meantime, also two of my friends became an operator. One of them will. It's just that we're the only center in Belgium that does this. So if you want to do this in Belgium, you have to be a bit lucky, because there are not that many positions and sometimes they get filled informally, so maybe it is hard to get in. I try to stay excited about all these things, and when I started here, I was like, you listen to, we listen to astronauts all the time, we see what they are doing. And okay, they're normal people like you and me, but they're in space. And sometimes we get to tell them what they should do. It's cool, and I think it's important to try to find the excitement in your job, just for yourself. It doesn't have to be the big things, it can be small things as well. I wanted to become a researcher. But then over the course of the education you find out that you're not the best one, and that maybe you're not that excited anymore. And then you start wondering. For me, honestly, it was a process of thinking if I wanted to do a PhD, if I could do a PhD. And I realized it was not going to be for me. And then I just started looking for a job, and that proved to be quite hard. Because as an astronomer, nobody has an idea what you can. In the industry, nobody knows. So you have to explain, and I found that difficult, because what can you do that is relevant? some data analysis, yeah, some programming, but how to sell yourself on the job market, I found that difficult. So I looked for vacancies, but also the words they use in vacancies are often difficult to understand. And I applied a few times. And in the end, I actually found a job at this IT company where they search for masters in general. And then suddenly I could start working here. But as a pure scientist, I think it's difficult on the job market to explain what you did. For engineers, I guess it's different. For chemists as well. But if you've done mathematics or physics, and if you don't directly go to a bank. My former classmates, almost everybody got to do a PhD. So it's quite limited range of work. From the extra year in space studies I did, quite a few of them got into the space business. So we're now 3 operators here. We have somebody working at ESOC in Darmstadt on space debris, modeling, calculations. We have somebody who works at the ESA headquarters in Paris on policy issues. Yeah, we have somebody who was already a doctor and is now specializing in space medicine and does quite a lot in that. So we managed to find our way. In astronomy, yeah, they're doing PhDs, and then the question after the PhD is for them now, what can they do now? So now they have to start looking for a job. And I'm happy to be here. I have some experience already. And I'm happy here. I think even though I work here already for 3 years, I can still learn a lot. And we have challenging projects. So I'm happy with the choice I made and the opportunity I got to.
The feedback is just visual on the you can also look on the PCS, see our wastewater tank quantities dropped off procedure. Good afternoon, Simon team. This is the departing orbit 1 Eurocom. Orbit 2 will be on call Antonio, and I will perform the handover, so he is ready whenever you need him. All crew activities are done except the last step 11 of the circadian rhythm, which is just the clean up. There is an on-call to go, but I guess that can be taken by a call flight. Other than that, ICN 17193 is up for review. It's the graphic words for the delta lowering between the last 2 containers of the lumber.
There's a group of people having a cell phone optical tone, and these people have a disadvantage. But if nobody has one, then the whole world is just different. Then. How is it possible that they have no cell phone? I mean, the locals, how do they connect to their phone? There's like no reception there at all. How do they survive?
I'm going to be talking about sustainable business, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give you real-world examples of sustainable businesses for today and tomorrow. I want to challenge you to think broad, and think big. And I also invite you to think about me. So my name is Dr. Beavers. I'm a recent grad in computer science, specialized in user experience and strategy. If you're thinking broad and big about creating impacts with technology, come and talk to me. I'm always interested in hearing your story.
I'm looking for work where I can make a positive impact on the world using technology, and that could be in any domain, like education or healthcare, or improving democracy. Whatever I can do with technology that makes the world a little bit better, but it's also that also has a profitable business model. So I'm not looking for NGO work, but really to look for that match between doing something impactful and making a sustainable business out of that. Well, it's true that if you don't have access, like if you don't have enough money to buy food, it doesn't matter what work you can do, right? And you just need money to buy food. If you have enough money in terms of food and basic health and a roof above your head, and I think for me it's a matter of giving meaning to your life. When you think back at, when you're gonna be old and you're gonna look back when you were young, I think you have to be proud of yourself. I want to go from from a starter job position to something to grow in that, right? I want to be very ambitious in growing in my life. I want to learn every year. Every year I want to be on the next level, so don't get stuck somewhere. Always keep going, keep improving, and keep learning. We're digital natives. We're born with technology, we use it all the time. For us, for me at least, using technology is something very fluently. I don't think about it, I just, it's like an extension of the human body or smartphone, you could say. The point of looking for a job is to find a job that you're happy with. That's super important. So don't settle with a job that you don't really like, but add to a sustainable businesses, so they want to make an impact with their work, whether it's technology, software, or something else. And I think that's the whole reason that they're here.
I think they're all pretty fond of innovation. Not everyone likes innovation because a lot of people are quite hesitant towards change and they just want things to stay the way they are. A couple of years ago I was asking myself, what do I really want to do with my life? And after a couple of months I came to the conclusion that I just want to make products, services, apps, whatever, which really impacts our world, and I really want to make an impression, a good impression, an everlasting impression on our world and society. I didn't really know what to do with the rest of my life, so I just started studying something. At first I did some kind of hotel management 1 year, which wasn't interesting at all. I don't really know why I picked that, but I was like a silly 18-year-old. And then I switched to economy, and I did that for 4 years. And then in my master's year, I did all my exams, and I just had to do my thesis. But at the same time, actually all the full 4 years I was working on the side. I was building websites and working in this digital space already. And so at the time I had to make my thesis. We had this huge project inquiry, and so I had to decide to choose between the thesis and this project, and I chose for the project. And I never made my thesis, thus I never graduated. So I founded this agency at age 23, I guess. And then I did that for 7 years. On the side I worked on some startups, so digital products as well. And then on the side I founded this hackathon. And now recently we sold the digital agency. I just spent 3 months in San Francisco, because of my interest in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin space and cryptocurrency space in general, because I think that's going to be I don't only think, I'm convinced and sure that this is going to spark the next big revolution in our world. So a revolution that will even top the internet revolution. And it will make the world a better place, a more fair place. If I knew then what I know now, then I probably wouldn't have gone to college, and I would have just learned everything I would like to learn via the internet. I'm convinced that technology can really change the world for the better. Technology can also destruct the world for the worse. And probably the digital addicts, like those who always are looking on their screens and immersed into apps and whatever, they're not using the technology as it should be used. And they're mostly using digital fast food innovations like the Snapchats and the, maybe not Instagram, but like the quick and very addictive applications. But if you use technology well and know what to use, then it can really enhance the human condition.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been a few weeks in Berlin now, so getting used to it. There's two things you learn, like the startup entrepreneurship, very different from working in a big company. And on the other hand, yeah, moving to another city, it makes you take care of stuff yourself, so which is interesting, I guess. A recent graduate in my field that cannot get a job is, you can always get a job. Like there's plenty of jobs for computer scientists, at least where I live. Or here in Berlin too, there's so many jobs. But yeah, I think you should be critical and look at really find a good company where you really want to work and on a good product that you can really believe in and go work somewhere ambitious. Like there's this rule of always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and so they can lift you up, right? So in that sense, yeah, be ambitious with where you want to work. For computer scientists, we choose where we go to work. So the company has to sell themselves to the employee. Yeah, like the last few weeks, I've been mostly working a lot because I just arrived here at the company. It's a bit looking like how can you be of best value for the company, and so you don't want to leave at 5 p.m. and say bye. So the product is that they summarize non-fiction books. So for example, a book on marketing or a book on whatever, psychology or something. They summarize that in content that you can read in 15 minutes. But it's not done with an algorithm, it's an actual team of people that write it. And the idea is you can learn something new everywhere, whenever you have time. So. And right now I'll be working mostly on the mobile app. I talk with users, I do user tests, and I see like where do they have problems. And then on the other hand, I do research like in our domain or with our team members. Look at what are the opportunities, how can we extend our product. So for example, now we're working on a leaderboard, so where people can vote for new content. So do they want to have, something about this topic or that topic? So we have a leaderboard where people can vote, and then we start off by just making a text document that says like, what should this leaderboard do? How should it work? And then the goal is to go from there, from the requirements, into different screens that work together in a nice workflow, that look nice, that are clear, that the user can understand. So designing all that is requires creativity, of course. Yeah, greetings from Berlin. Right.